It's fine. So, um, Max Brunel is the urbanologist. He is a writer, teacher, explorer. Max, this is Rethinking the City. We are very interested in change makers, both local and outside of our region. So we're happy to hear you talk about your work and talk about some of your projects related to your new book on Chicago and just in general your exploration of urban environment. We got some background noise here as well, so if you hear cars going by, it's because we're outside. But take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Professor, for having me. Hello, everyone in Florida. Been to Florida a number of times to write about the state. It's been too long, almost 2 years. So, and a little bit about what I do is I, for the last few years, have worked on a number of different projects, along with I've written for travel outlets like the Rough Guides, Frommers, Boston Magazine, the Chicago Tribune, is I am always curious about urban conditions. So how do we, a specific reference to how does art and culture transform city centers? And that's part of some of my more recent projects. And one of the projects I'm going to talk about with you today is my Secret Chicago book, which is going to come out next year and features 100 lesser-known places in the city, including the place I am right now, speaking to you, the Blackstone Hotel. So that's a little bit about me.
So Max, do you have some images that you wanted to show us, or did you?
Yeah, I sent a couple to you. Let me just, they're on my desktop, so if I can, should I just use the bar?
Right. I'm going to share the screen.
Which is the icon on the left I should use?
It is right there. It's the second one, the green arrow.
Okay. Cool. So do I just drag it in there, or?
Just click it.
Okay, cool. Hold on a second. It doesn't seem to be working. Let me. Does the image have to be on the desktop?
No. Well, you're sharing your screen, so yeah. If you hit the share your screen button, the green button, the second button, then we'll be looking at your desktop.
All right, cool. Hold on one second. Let me just. I'm having a little trouble with it. 1 second. It should be under Secret Chicago. Let's see. Sorry, I thought I was more prepared. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I'm looking for. Is that it? It should be under Secret Chicago. Sorry. Let's see. Oh, there it is, Secret Chicago. Let me pull it up. Let me pull up the issues. Sorry for on this back end. Let me see where it is. Edgewater Mural. And the other one we were looking for is 1 second. Edgewater Mural and let's see. All right, so hopefully this will work. Okay, sorry everybody. All right, is it working?
No. I can still see you. All right, are those the two images that you sent me, or is that the whole thing?
Yeah, those are the two images I sent you.
Okay, hold on a second.
Sorry about that.
All right, so we're looking at the first image that you sent, which is the beyond your block. So go take it away.
Oh, okay, the Yondorf block. So this is a pretty interesting example of both historic preservation and a palimpsest, if you will, of the German American community in Chicago along North Avenue. North Avenue is a, not surprised, interestingly enough, an east-west street about 2 miles north of the Loop. And the interesting thing was this once was called the German Broadway. So you would, if you were to travel down this street, 1880, really until the 1930s, even early 40s, you would find a mix of social halls, German beer halls, gathering rooms, commercial businesses, etc. A very dense urban fabric, 2-3 story buildings. So the Yondorf block was specifically built as a meeting place for German Americans. The second floor, which was an assembly hall, excuse me, the third floor, which is an assembly hall, was always dedicated to gatherings, 200-300 people, fraternal organizations, etc. And the first floor was meant to be rented out as commercial rental property. And the interesting backstory, and this is why I've included this in my book, Secret Chicago book, is that it narrowly escaped demolition a number of times. It predates the elevated train structure, which circles around it, which is exactly the reason the L goes around it. So that's kind of a neat little fact. And also, in the late 80s, early 90s, the building was scheduled to be demolished for, not surprisingly, a parking lot, which is, those of you that know cities know this is a kind of a question of, provisioning space and the fact that people like to drive their cars and like to have free parking. So the Yondorf block is really a great success story because it was preserved starting in 1990-91 by a team of architects, including John Vinci, who's a very well-known architect in the city of Chicago, because they wanted this to remain an important part of the city's landmark. It received landmark designation, I think, in 92 or 93, and the city designation is the highest designation in the city. You cannot demolish it. So it's been preserved, and the main tenant now, commercial uses on the first floor come and go. The main tenant is the Steppenwolf Theater. It's a costume design company on the first floor, and the third floor remains a meeting hall that can be used for a variety of gatherings.
So you want to go to your second image?
Yes, please. Thank you.
There you go, the Edgewater Mural.
Oh, this is one of my favorites. I don't know if anyone in the audience has been to Chicago, the Edgewater community, which is about 7 miles north of the city of Chicago. The Edgewater Mural is, I think, the kind of the merger of community, both organization and input into a public art project, one of the best that I've seen. It's such a remarkable piece. It's on both sides of the Lakeshore Drive underpass, and the Lakeshore Drive was created in the early 1930s, part of the WPA to ease access for automobiles. What a shocker. And, people looked at these spaces, 70s, 80s, people in the Chicago Public Arts Group, and they said, oh my God, it's just great, right? We have enough poured concrete around the city. What can we do to make this a dynamic space that people walking to the lake or into the neighborhood from the lake will say, oh my God, let me stop and take a look at this. So there's scenes that celebrate all aspects of the area's community. You can see in this image we have a gentleman, local, it's a Mexican American, and but there's other scenes of birds, butterflies, historic postcards that have been put on pressed tile, and over 10,000 pieces of glass mosaic art comprise the piece. And it's just to give you a sense of its dimensions. It's about 9-10 feet tall and 50 feet in length, so it's huge, and it's on both sides of the underpass. So no matter where you're going, of course in a car, not the ideal way to see it, you kind of get some sense of the experience of the dynamic history of the community. And another follow-up, local school-age children were the participants, primary participants, guided by a team of 4 adults from the Chicago Public Arts Group, Chicago Public Mural Group, which has been around since 1972 or 73. So it's a really kind of a neat merger of, I think, a couple different truly egalitarian ideals, and it's a beautiful piece.
Those are all the images I have that you sent. Do you have some other images from your book, or?
Yeah, do you want me to go ahead and send you one right now?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, sure.
This is the actually the low tech way, but yes, go ahead.
All right.
Use us while we whip this out.
Sending you a couple right now. Thanks again.
No problem. If Google works as well as it should, I'll have them in a minute. In the meantime, could you tell us what was the inspiration for this project?
So it should be done spring of 2015. So it's it's been a labor of love. I, like many other people and all the students, everyone else in the room can appreciate this. Is external deadlines, teaching, doing some consulting and other projects can be very time consuming, shall we say? So that's the thing that has made some of the progress a little bit. It's been tough at times to get that kind of going, but the other exciting thing about the project is when it's done, it'll be something that will be, I think, will kind of endure. It's meant to be, I don't want to say timeless, but it's certainly meant to be, have a good, shall we say, shelf life. So I think those pictures should have gone through yet, but let me just check one thing, and I'll be right back with you. Sorry about that. Let me just try this. Sorry, thanks. And it should have gone through already. Oops.
Oh, no. Max, I'll keep an eye out on those. Could you tell us a little bit about your work on Orlando that you did in the past?
Yes. Sorry, this is just loading. Let me just make sure this will work. Okay. So the work I did on Orlando, I came to actually give a talk on. Sorry, let me get back to the little hangout so I can actually see you. Sorry about that. So the work on Orlando is I came to actually give a talk on the future of cities. So what are the big challenges that cities face in the 21st century? And the two obvious ones are, or the big one was infrastructure. So the reference wasn't specifically to Orlando, but when I was there, I was contracted by a group that was part of Condé Nast, and they were trying to tell unusual stories, or kind of contrarian stories about well-known cities. So when people think of Orlando, they probably think of Walt Disney World, International Drive, and that's it, right? Mainstream kind of ideas. So what they asked me to do was construct kind of a tour. What would people do and see during their visit to Orlando? And the kind of funny thing, those of you students who do digital media, and of course yourself, is that the company or the initiative went out of business, so the piece eventually was taken away. And they have taken it, it's gone forever, unfortunately. I wish I had a screen safe to share with you now. But the interesting thing for me was to see how downtown Orlando was having this kind of urban renaissance. And people just excited about the buzz and possibility of what was going on down there. So, and I think it's exciting because kind of creating that walkable community, when we think of Florida, most people don't think of Florida walking most places. You might think of some sort of center cities, but it was exciting. So, pardon me, let me just check and make sure these have, it seems like one has gone through, and the other one should go through. For some reason, the Wi-Fi here is very slow, so I'm sorry for that. It should go through in a second. So, and I guess the other thing I'd like to say just a little bit about kind of what I do as well is, along with kind of celebrating the stories of cities, I'm always interested in kind of what do outsiders perceive the city to be, right? What is the city of Chicago? What is St. Augustine, Florida? And kind of how do those conversations happen informally and informally through history museums or kind of what people hear from others about the place. Let me see if this is looks like it's moving kind of slow, but it should be through in just a second.
No, still haven't gotten it. So your book on Chicago will be out next year. What's your next
Yep.
project after that? Have that worked out?
Project after that is books are tough. They're time consuming, and increasingly, if I be so blunt about it, for someone I put together 2 teaching jobs. For me, it's almost better to work on shorter projects. So 2 other projects I have coming up are I'm one of the authors on the Atlas of Boston History. So I'm just contributing 2 plates, but each map plate contains 500 to 600 pieces of information. The first map is history of Boston colleges and universities, which, as you and your colleagues know, it's an area fairly dense with them. So telling that story, both in kind of, and it's a static map, I should point out. This is not GIS, for better or for worse. It's a static, physical, printed bound volume. So that presents a lot of challenges too. So that's exciting. And the other plate for that volume is on Boston's medical innovation and tech hubs. So that story is, of course, a little more recent, but still a very dynamic one. So just doing the primary and secondary research on that has been a hell of a lot of fun, actually, because people really like to tell their stories. And, of course, you come to a college or university and they present you with, well, here's 600 pages of documents, and I can only really use 1 or 2 pieces, but thank you for all this information. So I think the images should go through. So that's the other project I'm working on right now, and I also I'm doing a project on coming up every week for the Choose Chicago website. I'll be doing a profiling a different corner of the city of Chicago. So that's kind of exciting as well.
Well, Max, I haven't been able to pull those images. I think it's a question of Wi-Fi and internet. You might have got hijacked by external forces. Hold on a second. Okay. I think we might have them. Hold on.
Thank you.
There we go. Bam. City Gallery.
City Gallery. So this is an interesting. I include this as a secret because those of you in the audience and yourself, Professor, you've been to Chicago. You've walked on Michigan Avenue, which, of course, north of the Chicago River is a modern creation post World War II. Oh, sorry,
Max. We lost you for a second there. All right, so start over.
All right. Sorry, I hope the ambient meant to be inoffensive.
It was the Wi-Fi here.
Okay.
The universe is working against you.
City. So we were talking about City Gallery, right?
Right.
So everyone who comes to Chicago walks on the Mag Mile, north of the Chicago River, the skyscrapers, the American Girl Place, whatever. And of course, the most notable historic landmark in the area is that thing, that massive edifice that Oscar Wilde called a castellated pillbox, the actual water tower, and the pumping station, which is, of course, on the east side of Michigan Avenue. But what most people don't know, and what most Chicagoans don't know, and I've been here for 20 years, so I count myself as a Chicagoan, is that there's a lovely gallery inside, which, of course, at one point contained kind of a water tower keeper's apartment, etc. And it's probably maybe 1,000, no, like 800 square feet tops. So the neat thing about experiencing this space is kind of the adaptation of a historic part of urban infrastructure into a place that celebrates Chicago's artistic tradition. So you might come January to March, there might be collection of female Chicago printmakers in the city. You might come 3 months later. It could be work by Chicago Public School students inspired by the physical water tower. And it's a great place. I think people look at it and think, here's this water tower, the symbol of Chicago's ability to have a renaissance after 1871 and the Great Fire. But oh goodness, let's step on and take a look. So it's a neat kind of gem, and if you slow down and you're waiting in line for the Cheesecake Factory or something, you can come over and take a look and kind of experience a unique part of Chicago history.
Okay, I'm going to switch to your next image. Cherry Street Bridge.
Ah, the Cherry Street Bridge, one of my favorites. So that's of the explanatory kiosk, but the Cherry Street Bridge is interesting that it still has freight rail across it along with pedestrian bikeway path. So it's right near, again, actually near the North Avenue Bridge, about 10-minute walk from the Yondorf block. So as you go over to the bridge, it's interesting because it was the only one of its type in the city of Chicago for many decades. And of course, it had fallen into pretty bad repair by the late 70s. People used to skateboard over it, do all kinds of stuff, graffiti, other illicit activities, etc. So now the city in the early 90s said, we're going to partner with Chicago Department of Transportation, Chicago History Society, Historical Society at the time, and we want to tell a little bit of this story. And we also, as people are more interested in using bike sharing projects, etc., we want to beef this up, offer another pathway for people across the Chicago River. So you can go to the Cherry Street Bridge, you can walk across it. It's obviously been renovated twice in the early 2000s, and occasionally it's kind of a rare treat to see a freight train, usually the Chicago Belt Railroad, running across it. Very infrequently, I should add.
Well, Max, we're closing in on our wrap-up time, so you get the final word. Is there anything you want to share about your Secret Chicago or some of your insights in terms of the Chicago we don't know? Now's the time to tell us.
I love it. Yes, I'd be happy to do so. I think the Chicago that most people know, and I think a lot of places have this problem, big cities, small cities, and I was just in Jonesboro, Arkansas this weekend, and I think about what does one think about what they think about Arkansas. I think the things about Chicago that most people know, where they tend to be sports focused or kind of select moments in history, there's such a rich tradition, the good, the bad, the other, like with any other city, that's really kind of waiting out there for people to explore. How do we celebrate different types of history? And also the thing I like to do is how do you weave those different histories together, right? It could be the history of female architects, could be interested of African American sailors, which I haven't explored yet. But how do you bring those things together to kind of provide this kind of different perspective on, the other Chicago? And I think the things that tend to get focused on are those dramatic architecture events, World's Fair, or sensationalist killings of the 19th century, which I'm not laughing because they're funny, but which I get. That's my nod to the devil in the White City. But how do you tell this story? And I think recent political history and recent urban history in Chicago is very interesting too. I think we're just kind of discovering that, the role of freeway construction, urban renewal. Oh, and one thing specifically that will be in the book too, and I encourage students, colleagues, whoever else in the audience, the National Public Housing Museum will open in the spring. And that's really testimony to the promise of public housing and also what, of course, in Chicago it became, which was, in many cases, unfair and kind of institutional racism of these vertical projects. So it's a complicated and complex history, and they're doing a great job of telling the history. So I encourage everyone to come visit Chicago, and I love hearing from people. So on Twitter, I'm at the Urbanologist or maxgrinnell@gmail.com. And thank you for having me.
All right, Max. Thanks for coming out. I know that you were in class and had to run away from your classroom to get online.
The students were very disappointed we had to leave early.
Yeah, I was the same way. But I really appreciate it. Sorry for dragging you around looking for Wi-Fi, but you have
Oh
a
no, it's
background.
okay. It's okay to sit in a luxury hotel. I will say one more thing, Professor. The hotel that I am sitting in now, in 1920, on the 10th floor of this building, President William G. Harding was selected as the next president Republican candidate in the famous smoke-filled room, which is still a room that you can come and request at the Blackstone Hotel.
Oh, nice. Well, I'd suggest you go to that smoke-filled room and do some dealing, actually.
Right. I feel like I might pour myself a martini and get on up there.
The life of the academic in the Northeast. All right. I'm going to let you go. Thanks a lot, Max. I'll be talking to you, I'm sure, on the Twitter. Um, thanks for talking to Rethinking the City. Let's give Max a round of applause because I know you're a little high.
Thank you, everyone, for having me. Sorry I was late to the event.